This is Empowering from Within, a show here to remind us how strong and excellent and valuable we all are, and that we all get to love ourselves and our lives no matter what. Hello and welcome to another episode of Empowering from Within. Phoebe here. Today I want to talk about our connection with the people around us, our compatibility with the people around us, and how to optimize and live harmoniously with our loved ones, our colleagues, our friends, our children, our parents, our in-laws, our networks. Because, everyone has read all the relationship books and the communication books and the attachment books, but there's something deeper going on than simply our relating style. And what has been a game changer for me and very eye-opening for me is understanding about the 4 areas of compatibility. So, as you know, I like to talk about energy and energetic laws and the laws of everything in this universe. And one of the laws that has really improved my relationships is the law of compatibility. And it basically states that there are 4 areas of compatibility between humans. They are physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And the most fulfilling, most rewarding, easy, heart-burstingly amazing relationships are when you are compatible with someone in all 4 areas. And I'll explain the areas in a little bit. But it's similar to the concept of a soulmate, where you just click on all levels and are completely complementary and compatible in all 4 areas. And I have come to learn that you can have soulmate friends, you can have soulmate clients, you can have a soulmate boss, you can have certain family members feel like they're a soulmate that just clicks in all aspects of your life. And where we bump up against people and those in our network or families or social or work settings where we kind of aren't jiving with someone and it feels really difficult, it's either a reflection and they're triggering something in us. If life is a mirror, then they're showing us something. Either it's usually that they're showing us something we don't like about ourselves, or they're making us feel some type of way that we already are feeling, and it's a wound that we get to heal and look at. Or if it doesn't feel triggering, then it is a compatibility issue. And if it's just like, I just feel like it's kind of jarring to hang out with this person, or we just cannot click and it feels strained and difficult, then it is probably a compatibility issue. And the beauty is that once you solve all your reflections, or you're in the habit of looking at your triggers and going into them and healing them and working out why certain interactions make you feel emotional or difficult feelings or discomfort or upset or disrespected or insignificant or inadequate or raging anger, whatever it might be, that's an unhealed, unresolved feeling inside you, will be brought up through relationships, which is beautiful because relationships are the greatest container for growth we could ever possibly wish for. And we get to heal it, and we get to use our interactions and relationships as a way to just continue to heal and grow and reach our potential. But instead of being the person that blames everyone or blames everything and says, oh, they're rude or they're not thoughtful or they're disrespectful or they're making me angry, it's like the person who constantly keeps dating the toxic person has like a sign on their head saying, if you're toxic, please date me. If you keep going from toxic person to toxic person and not looking inwards as to why you are a match to draw in a toxic person in the first place, then you're living in a completely disempowered state and you're giving your power to everyone around you and saying, you are in charge of how I feel. The most empowering, liberating thing we can do is take how we feel completely into our own hands. And when we get upset or emotional, try and figure out why did that upset me? What must I believe about myself if I'm feeling super emotional right now? And then we get to be entirely in control and in the driver's seat of how we feel and how we respond to those around us that we care about. because we're going to bump up against each other, living in close quarters or interacting in high stakes environments or working under pressure in a job. All our wounds and triggers are going to come up. Like life is going to life. And once we have emotional mastery tools to figure out how to soothe and regulate ourselves and how to shift any really difficult beliefs underneath our emotions, then relationships become a whole lot easier. But what is even more fulfilling and even more incredible is instead of blaming the other person, use any upset feelings as an opportunity for growth. And the more that you do this, the less the relationship becomes emotionally charged and the less you are reactive and the more calm and peaceful you are and the more resourced you feel internally. So you no longer rely on the people around you and the relationships around you to make you feel any type of way because you are taking radical responsibility for your own feelings, which takes the pressure off relationships and makes them way more pleasant. But it also means you're not just hopping from one relationship to the other, facing the exact same wounds and the exact same triggers, because wherever you go, there you are. And we all know that if you leave the job, you go to another job, the same wounds and triggers and issues are going to arise and follow you there. If you leave the partner, you're going to find the same issues and triggers and wounds pop up with the new partner. The whole point of relationships is a journey of inner growth. And yes, of course, we love companionship and sharing experiences with loved ones, but any form of upset or trigger or emotion that pops up in relationships is entirely our responsibilities. And that is how we individuate and have interdependent relationships rather than outsourcing all our feelings and how we feel and our sense of happiness and our sense of joy to our loved ones, because that's no way to live. Like, it's completely disempowering. So a gentle reminder that taking care of your own emotions and how you show up in relationships is key. And if you use relationships as a vehicle for growth, then this beautiful, brilliant, universal law of compatibility starts to organize relationships to bring out the greatest energy of all parties and to make you a match for the best relationships possible. So if you are, let's say, in a workplace with a toxic boss or in a relationship with a toxic partner, and you leave the workplace or leave the relationship, if you don't solve your reflections and take radical responsibility for your feelings, energy is going to keep amplifying in ways you don't want. And your lessons are going to get louder. And those wounds are going to get louder because your higher self wants you to look at them and wants you to heal them to get you to the life and the optimal potential that you are here to grow into. And you can't do that if you're relying on everyone else to do it for you. So once you start processing your own emotions and solving all your own reflections, you become a match for better relationships. So if you get to a place where you're like, this relationship with my boss or this relationship with my partner is the best it can be, and I gently and lovingly choose to leave to find something better because I think there is a more fulfilling level of compatibility, and you're not leaving in a triggered or heightened, emotionally charged, blaming state, then the next relationship you go to will be a higher level of compatibility. It is a law. So you keep going up the rungs. You have to earn the right to get into a relationship with your most compatible partner. You have to gain a certain level of mastery to up level in your friendships, romantic relationships, work life, because otherwise the same wounds and triggers just follow you wherever you go. So if you choose to embrace this journey of growth and inner development, the rewards are so bountiful because you start to feel like we've all sat around with old friends and realized, you know what? I think I've outgrown these people. Not in a way that makes you feel any kind of negative feeling towards them. It's just like, I have wider interests or greater callings to different passions and themes of my life. And I can no longer be, for example, from my own life, the drunk 20-year-old that I was all those years ago. I now have different, more expanded interests, and I have no shade towards the people I used to roll with and drink in my 20s, love them dearly, but I'm now looking for a level of compatibility and connection that is beyond just getting together and drinking. So simple example, but you can all relate, I'm sure. So what are the areas of compatibility? What do they look like? Well, we have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. In terms of a physical compatibility, this is where you, like in romantic relationships, it would be you're of a similar height and build. One partner is not like 6 foot and the other is 4 foot. You have similar physical levels of fitness. You like the same kind of foods and diet. You like being in the same physical locations. Like one person is not a couch potato and the other person is like an adventure, hiking, world traveling, mountain climbing yogi. Or you're both couch potatoes or you're both the traveling type. You have a physical sense of similar interests and tastes and compatibility. You probably both have a similar aesthetic in terms of your physical environment and your physical home. You like doing the same exercise or lack of exercise. You both find it easy to hang out and do any physical things together. These are like the friends that you work out with and you're always up for a similar kind of physical exercising workout. Okay, next is mental compatibility. So a mental compatibility is when you are a similar intellect. You don't need to know exactly the same things about exactly the same topics. And often it's very complementary. You both have a similar level of need for mental stimulation. And the topics are very, very complementary and informative. So one person may have done like a deep dive on the natural world and another person might have done a deep dive on, let's say, the energetic world. And you both love sharing and you learn so much faster together because you both have these separate mental bodies of information and are both keen to like connect mentally and have what you both think are intellectually stimulating conversation. You both have the same humor. Humor is a big sign when you like absolutely jive with someone in a humor sense or you just cannot get enough of their text banter or witty repartee. You are a mental match. In the area of mental, you are going to flow and you might both have a similar level of interest or lack of interest in current affairs. You might have both studied to a similar level or be interested in the same sorts of books or topics or be able to just have really mentally engaging conversations. This is an important one for me because I have had such physical limitation that I just take so much value in a mental connection with someone. I find it very hard to do a sort of surface level weather type conversation all day long with someone. I'm sure other people can relate to that sentiment of feeling like jarred when you're not on a same mental level as someone else, maybe at work or in your family. And the game changer, which I'll dive into after I go through these 4 areas, is that you no longer seek to connect on the areas where you are not compatible. And so instead of banging your head against a brick wall, you simply seek to relate to all the people in your life in the areas that you are most compatible. And when you have a 4 out of 4 match in your life, it becomes so easy and dreamy. And it's really hard to go back to a 1 out of 4 or a 2 out of 4 friendship or relationship once you've experienced such wholesome and well-rounded compatibility. Okay, moving on to emotional compatibility. This is where you both have a similar emotional range or depth and can meet each other in an emotional way. It's often helpful to use the analogy of like a lake versus a thimble when you feel like you could just feel and express and articulate all your emotions very, very deeply and well. And the other person just can't really go there. They're more of a closed book or they have less of an emotional capacity to meet you where you are at. And emotional compatibility also shows up when someone feels very uncomfortable when you're sharing something emotional and they instantly want to fix it or, move on or just don't know what to say. That often shows a lack of emotional compatibility or lack of emotional capacity. And when 2 people both are lacking in like a very, very vast emotional capacity, that's a brilliant match. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's very, very helpful to understand which friends and family members to go to depending on your emotional capacity and what you are seeking from that connection. The final area is spiritual, which doesn't necessarily mean anything religious or woo-woo. It's just that part of yourself that is into inner growth, inner awareness, self-development, bettering yourself. It can be, metaphysics and understanding all that is unseen. It can be religion, but it doesn't have to be. It just means being able to have a conversation where you can both understand where the other is coming from, or just being able to not have to hide that part of yourself in relationships. I often find, as someone who is pretty tapped into the spiritual world and enjoys thinking and living my life in an energetic way, that often if I talk to someone who has not necessarily gone down the spiritual road, they look at me like I have two heads with some of the things that I say about energy and spirituality and understanding the world in a sense of believing in things that are not materially, scientifically provable, but that I know in my bones is true because of my lived experience and just my sort of knowing in my soul. So when I find someone who has a similar spiritual understanding or interest, the level of connection that I experience is extremely fulfilling. Now, I have heaps of friends not interested in spirituality or the spiritual world and very, very driven by everything that is 3D. And we still get along like a house on fire. I just don't bring that part of myself to the table if they are not there themselves. And we connect mentally, emotionally, and physically very easily. But I choose to reserve my spiritual connection for other areas of my life where it is easily compatible with those around me, like my work and certain relationships in my life. So I have found this particularly helpful with my mother, who I've spent a lot of time with over the years because she was kind of there on the ground when I was in hospital at 18 and was very dependent and had lost so much ability. She was the one, driving my wheelchair self around to different appointments, helping me to, get back to my independent life. And she also lives quite proximate to me these days in her retirement. And we get along well, but we also really irritate each other. And she can really trigger me. I obviously am mature enough and have done enough inner work to no longer spray my triggers onto her and get really upset and compromise our closeness. However, I've only been able to do that because of our compatibility and focusing on where we are compatible and no longer bringing my areas of non-compatibility to her and saying, why will you not connect with me here in an energetic kind of way? I used to go to her to feel better about my emotions. I used to explain spiritual principles to her ad nauseum, wanting her to get it. And she just would placate me, but never actually click and lock in and be like, oh, wow, yes, Phoebe, that's so interesting. And I just kept going back and back and back and being like, there's something wrong with her. But of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with her. She is a wonderful, valuable, very loving and practically helpful and supportive person. And she is so physically practical and physically helpful. And we are both people who don't really like to sit still and like to be doing and producing and creating. And so whenever she supported me, it was always in a physical way. And I kept trying to relate to her in all the 4 areas, but it was just not happening. And it was very frustrating until I learned this law. And I was like, oh, Mum and I are a brilliant physical and mental match. We are not particularly emotionally and spiritually compatible. She is, of course, still going to listen to me when I'm emotional. And sometimes I share spiritual knowledge and understanding that I have been researching and integrating with her. And she politely listens, but I don't get that deep click connection where she's reciprocating and totally getting it and adding to it. It's not entirely energizing and fulfilling and exciting and connected. And sometimes when I didn't know this law in years gone by, it used to actually be very, very draining, our relationship. And so being able to just choose where I intentionally connect with my mum has meant that our relationship is way more fulfilling and harmonious. And the parts of me that are seeking emotional and spiritual connection are fulfilled in my other close relationships and not at all lacking in my life as a whole. And it means that we are not at loggerheads. And it also means that I didn't have to say, hey, mum, change who you are to fit me. I was just like, oh, this is who I am. I took complete responsibility for how I was showing up and how I was connecting. I took my intention into my own hands to be like, well, I want to have a harmonious relationship with my mum and the grandmother of my children. And I don't want to be drained and annoyed and frustrated and upset all the time whenever I am relating to her. So I'm going to choose to relate in the areas where we are compatible, and we will thrive and flourish in those areas. And our relationship has been much better for it. And I think obviously our relationship with our parents can be quite charged if we aren't compatible, or if there's a lot of events that may have caused pain in the past. And that's a whole other podcast and inner healing journey on its own. But I think if we can take this principle of compatibility and relate it to our colleagues at work, or our family members on Christmas Day, or our friendships, and we continue on our path of growth through relationships, looking at our triggers and wounds, healing them, shifting beliefs, and not relying on everyone else to make us feel whole and complete, because we can do that ourselves, and not relying on everyone else to make us feel joyful and happy and relaxed, because we provide that for ourselves. And we then find that our day is just so much more fulfilling and easeful and harmonious. And, that is true empowerment. That is taking our relationships into our own hands and not making or manhandling everyone out there outside of us to be certain ways and show up certain ways to make us feel okay and connected, or, supported, or like we are understood, because we now understand ourselves and we now understand our own areas of connection with those around us. It's quite easy to spot once you get into the habit of keeping this law in the back of your mind when you're relating to people, and looking at your friendships and where you tend to hit it off with someone in different areas. And it's just been a wonderful way for me to find harmony in another area of my life. And it's really helpful going into the holiday season, knowing that we can choose to not get into the loggerheads or the hitting our head against the wall when we're trying to make someone be something that they're not to us or to anyone. And we can use our wounds and triggers and upset feelings as a path to continued healing and growth. And we can see our relationships as a way to connect and flourish in the areas that we are compatible to do so. And as we continue to do both those things, our relationships tend to get more and more and more fulfilling, and people are drawn into our lives who are excellent matches for us, and our connecting with everyone around us becomes more and more optimized, more and more joy-filled, and we take how we feel and how we show up into our own hands. So may you have wonderful connections this Christmas and New Year and summer here in Australia. May you relate to your people and your loved ones in ways that feels good to you. And may you know that if you get triggered or hurt or upset, or you just want to flip a table at the Christmas celebration, and you just want to punch someone in the face, or if you just want to go cry in a corner because you feel so isolated, that is very valuable information that you can use to heal something inside of you that is knocking on your door, ready to heal. And it is not a failure. It is not a symptom of your ability to be happy and joyful. It is simply just a endearing, lovely little wound that we get to heal on our own terms. And I'll be giving more emotional mastery tools in 2026. I have loved starting my business and my website and my podcast this year, and connecting with so many incredible people who are thirsty for knowledge and improving their lives and seeing things in a way that is a wider perspective, and wanting to live lives full of joy and purpose. And I feel like we are all very compatible here at the Empowering from Within podcast. So may you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year or whatever you celebrate. And if you want support or mentoring around your relationships or your emotional mastery, I would be completely delighted to help you with that, to help you optimize how you feel and how you process your emotions and shift limiting beliefs underneath your emotions or old programs that are running in your subconscious or your conscious mind. If you want to have all the optimal and elite tools to perform well in your work life, in your personal life, and thrive, then hit me up for a session. I have private sessions, one-on-one coaching and mentoring where it is utterly private, done by Zoom. You can come to me with any of your greatest pain points or things you want to achieve, and I will give you all the tools that I use, that I have used. I'll give you all the energetic laws and everything I know to change your life. I have changed my own life from the worst circumstances possible. I have processed level 10 out of 10 emotions, level 10 out of 10 triggers, and I can now wholeheartedly say that I live the greatest life possible to my greatest potential. And I have all the hacks and tools and insights and perspective shifts to help you do the same. I am so passionate about giving you everything I can in one session. This is not going to be a relationship of dependency. I will give you everything that I have to get you to your next level of relationships, of purpose, of joy, of emotional mastery. And it is my true heart's calling to do this work. And I love it. And I am seeing the shifts in my clients, and it is absolutely incredible. So if you are up for some coaching this Christmas period or the new year to start the year fresh and get some more elite tools and continue your life mastery, then I am your girl. Go to my website, phoebestewart.com, or you can DM me on Instagram, and it would be my absolute privilege to give you everything that I know and have to change your own life as well. And thank you so much for being here. It has been such a dream to start my business and start this podcast, and it is a complete honor and privilege to have you here with me. Much love, happy Christmas, happy holidays, and many, many blessings to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for being here today. If you want to keep hanging out, because I sure do, then head to my Instagram at Phoebesgram or my website, phoebestewart.com.